What is going on, guys? My name is Akash Kumar and welcome to another video tutorial of YouTube Data API. And in this video I'm going to show you how we can use playlists endpoint to retrieve the playlists of any channel that you want. So I've picked up this random channel and I'm going to use this endpoint to retrieve the playlists, some of the playlists of this channel. So when you open any channel, you're gonna see the ID, the channel ID of that YouTube channel over here. So you're gonna copy that and you're gonna have to head over to the documentation of the YouTube Data API and paste that channel ID over here and write snippet. So when you press execute, you're gonna get something like that. So as you can see, the content that we are interested in contains inside the snippet JSON object. So we're interested in the channel title, its description, the thumbnails. So we're gonna retrieve a couple of items inside the snippet JSON object and we're gonna show the playlists in a slider. So to do that, you're gonna have to head over to your Android Studio and head over to your build.gradle app file, and you're gonna have to include this dependency in your build.gradle file. So the next thing that we need to do is we're gonna have to head over to this website and I'm gonna copy the dummy API response that I got over here and I'm gonna paste it inside this box, because obviously we're gonna be using retrofit and to retrieve the playlists from the API, and to be able to do that I'm gonna have to create a model. So I'm gonna give a package name and my class name over here, and then I'm going to press preview. You're gonna have to make sure the options are selected correctly. So you have to press preview, and when you press preview you're gonna get a bunch of classes that is for retrofit. So retrofit actually uses these classes along with the annotations to parse the JSON so that it knows which JSON object is it that we are referring to later on in our code when we will see that later on. So we're gonna head over to our Android Studio, and inside the model package you're gonna create another package. I'm gonna name this as playlist model. And I'm gonna copy all of this actually. Okay, copy and paste. Okay, now you're gonna have to remove a bunch of things from here. It's not recommended to create a model class like this. I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. The best way to do this would be to create a separate class for thumbnails and a separate class for standard, and for each of the classes that you see here you're gonna have to create a separate class inside this package, as I have done over here. So you can just remove these import statements because you don't need those. Okay, so as you can see we have the classes over here. So if you take a look at the dummy API response, you can see that we have a list of playlists inside this items JSON array. So what we are interested in is we are going to retrieve the list of playlists, and inside this JSON array we are going to head over into the JSON object, the snippet JSON object, and we are going to retrieve a bunch of things inside this JSON object, such as title, description, and maybe a medium resolution image of that playlist. So once you have created all these classes, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an endpoint. Since we are retrieving the playlist, so obviously it would be a GET request. I'm gonna copy this endpoint over here, paste it over here. Okay, you're gonna have to write playlists, and the reason I have written playlists is because I need to access this particular list over here, because as I have said before, we want this JSON array. We are interested in this JSON array because this JSON array actually contains the list of playlists. So I'm gonna name this function as get playlists, and we would have 3 query parameters. So one would be the part, the second would be the key, which we generated from the Google console in my first video of this series, the introduction video, where I actually show how to generate an API key from the Google console. So the last parameter that we would have is the channel ID. Okay, so we would have to specify the channel, which channel is that we are interested in. So the next thing that we need to do is you're gonna have to head over to your activity underscore main XML file, and inside there I would have to write slider layout, match parent, web content, and I'm gonna give this an ID of slider layout. I'm gonna copy that, head over to our main activity and create a member variable like that, and find this through its ID. Okay, I'm gonna create a function get playlists. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy that because I don't have to write all of this again and again. We have done this before. So inside this I would have to write okay, so as we earlier that we saw the required parameter, as we can also see from this documentation, the required and the most important parameter is the part, and inside the part its value that we would have to give is the snippet. So I'm gonna write snippet over here, and I'm gonna write the key, and again this key is generated from the Google console. If you don't know how to do that, you're gonna have to watch my very first video of this playlist series, tutorial series. And the last thing is the channel ID. So I'm gonna copy this channel ID and I'm gonna paste it over here. Again, let me tell you this again, this channel ID, I have chosen this channel at random. You can choose any channel that you want, and you're gonna have to copy this channel ID as you can see above in your address bar. So okay, the next thing that we need to do is that we need to request the endpoint asynchronously, and to do that we're gonna have to call this enqueue function, and we're gonna have two callback functions. If for any reason this API request fails, we need to log the error so that we can debug it later on. If the response is successful, we need to have a couple of checks here because we need to make sure that we actually got something in the response and the response is not null. So to do that, I'm gonna write response.body is not equal to null. If the response.body is null, then I'm gonna inform the user that no playlists found, and I'm gonna, since there would be no playlist, so I'm gonna just set the visibility to gone. Because then there would be no point of showing the slider. So if we actually got the list of playlists in our response, so what we need to do is we need to store those playlists inside an array list. So we need to create an array list over here, and I'm gonna write playlist dot item, and I'm gonna name this item list. So the reason that I wrote item over here is because we're gonna have a list of playlists. So we would have each individual playlist inside this list. So what I am talking about is, let me show you. So we have this array, and inside this array we have this is the first playlist that we actually got, starting from these curly braces and ending at this curly brace. So this is the first playlist which would be stored at the 0th index, and so on and so forth. We have this second playlist, and which would be stored at the first index, and so on and so forth, as you can imagine. So that's why I have written item over here, because this is item actually refers to a single playlist that we would have in the response. So once you have created the playlist, we need to initialize it. So I'm gonna write item list is equal to new array list. So item list dot clear item list dot add all response dot body dot get items. So it's gonna, as you can see, the get item is going to return a list of playlist items, and those playlist items would be one by one stored in this array list that we created above. So now I'm going to call another function over here, set up slider, because we are going to show the playlists inside a slider. And I'm going to copy that, and we're gonna have a check here. So the reason that I have cleared this array list and then included the add all method is because when the user decides to refresh to retrieve updated playlists of that channel, so what we need to do is we need to clear the previous playlists that we might have and update the array list that we created above with the new items that we would have when the user would refresh. So that's why I've called this function and cleared this array list so that we would have the updated playlists from the response. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up the slider, and for that let me just check I have initialized the slider layout. And okay, now if you have done everything correctly up to this point, we would have a loop over here which would loop through the items list. Okay, the purpose of this for loop is what it's going to do, it's going to loop through by saying loop through, I mean it's going to retrieve the playlists one by one, and it's going to retrieve the URL of that playlist image that we would get from the response. Okay, so this is what I am referring to. The medium is the resolution of that playlist image. So each playlist has an image. So my aim here is to show the playlist image inside a slider. So once we have the playlists in our array list, I'm going to retrieve the playlist one by one, retrieve their URLs and set it up in the slider view. So that's why I have a for loop here and I'm gonna create slider view is equal to new slider view, get application context, slider view dot set image URL, items list dot get I dot get snippet dot get thumbnail, get medium, get URL. Okay, so let me just tell you what is actually happening here. So get I obviously means that it's going to retrieve the playlists one by one, and it's going to head inside the snippet JSON object. As you can see, if you head over to your dummy API response that we got here, and so we have the playlists over here inside this JSON array. So what it's going to do, it's going to head inside this snippet JSON object. Okay, so we have an individual item over here. So inside this item, we would head inside the snippet. Inside the snippet, we would head over to the thumbnails JSON object. So inside the thumbnails JSON object, we have another JSON object of medium. So I have called get thumbnails, get medium, and then get URL actually retrieves this URL, the value. Okay, and the next thing that we need to do is that we need to set its scale type, and we need to write image view, scale type, center crop, I believe, slider view dot set description, item list dot get I dot get snippet dot get title. Okay, and the last thing that we need to do is we need to set this slider view inside the slider layout. Add slider view and slider view. Okay, so I believe there's nothing else to do. I'm just gonna fire up my Genymotion, the Android emulator, and we're gonna try to run this program, and let's see we don't get any errors. Let's hope that we don't get any errors. So Okay, I think we have a UI error, because you can see that we got so much. I'm just going to give this a height of 250 display pixels, and I'm gonna run this again, and let's see what do we have. So as you can see, we have our playlists. So by default it actually retrieves 5 items or playlists, you can say. So in the next video I'm gonna show you how we can use the playlist items endpoint. If I click upon a specific playlist over here, so if I click upon this playlist, it's going to head over to another activity, and inside that activity we would have the videos of that particular playlist which would have been clicked upon. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time.